This is an article about Clockedin, which it says in the article that it wants to be a LinkedIn for wage workers, but I didn't think that was a great analogy, really, because it's a bit more than that, isn't it?
Yeah,
Really
yeah. I guess they
LinkedIn
say
at all.
they want to be Uber meets LinkedIn, kind of.
Yeah. So this is interesting. New app wants to connect food service workers with available gigs, and this is all about adapting to the crisis as well. Obviously, that's going to be a big focus of our discussion today. But Clockedin, which I think launched in April, actually.
Launched in April.
Yeah, and it's really quite clever. So job seekers, and this is people who work shift work in places such as coffee shops, grocery stores, fast food restaurants. Now they can view a map that updates in real time. Now I find that amazing. They pick a specialization such as dishwashing, customer service, and they can view available work shifts across different employers in that chosen position and also get paid through the app. So, yeah, I don't think LinkedIn is a great comparison. It is a bit more like Uber, isn't it?
Yeah, a bit more like Uber. It probably should be Uber meets Netflix, kind of like what Tobias Perserud at App Jobs is quoted as saying, that the future is going to be workers streaming, having their work stream in front of them real time, and they're going to be able to plug and play an 8-hour day across multiple employers.
Yeah, and and the technology that can actually allow that to happen is incredible, because tracking a taxi, and I'm not techie, but I can certainly imagine that that's a much more simple type of technology that involves in multiple different work types, multiple timings, constant updating by the companies that are uploading their available shifts on that. So this was the article that sort of announced the arrival. I thought it was a very interesting model. And I think it does open up a bit more for us, I think, the conversation around the gig economy and the crisis, and how gig work is really something that more people are going to be turning to in this post-pandemic recession, or if we can talk in terms of a post-pandemic at any point soon, that would be great. But the recession obviously is going to hit. Some people have been furloughed. They may be looking for additional income. And any app or platform that allows access to gig work and allows it to be as flexible as this, as easy to access as this, is surely something that has really come at the right time. Have you seen anything like this appear in the US?
Oh, yes. Last year, I was part of a startup called Proven, and I helped with the strategy. I kind of anticipated this sort of world emerging probably 3 or 4 years ago, when I was doing some strategy work, even for a background check company before I joined on with the startup Proven. We're seeing this emerge. Uber itself has launched a business just like this, where they are trying to essentially act as a staffing agency for real-time work for people who want different types of gig assignments. And so, as you said, the pandemic has kind of pushed this to the forefront, with more people finding themselves furloughed and looking for opportunities. But this model is fascinating because, like the Uber model, like the one we were building at Proven, you select a job type, your dishwasher. You select that, and then suddenly all the dishwashing opportunities with multiple employers are plugged into the system. Those employers then go in and put the hours that they need a dishwasher. They may not need one all day. They may need one at 2, 4, 6, or 8 p.m. And based on your schedule and your availability that you put into the system, the algorithm automatically gives you the option to fill those available hours with the opportunities that the employers have also put in the system. So it's also, I don't want to call it a dating app, but it's a matchmaking app that pits your availability against their work demands and gives you a schedule that you control. And that's something we saw coming in this market, as many of the newly graduated high school seniors are opting not to want to work a full 8-hour job. They want to be able to select a place, a city, a location, a destination, let people know they're available to work for 3 to 4 hours in order to earn money to do the things they want to do that evening. And then they turn the clock off and enjoy themselves, turn it back on the next day. And if everybody works that way, the problem is employers do need 8 hours to fill these jobs. And they now have to shift the way they staff, the way they recruit, and the way they retain these workers. It's hard for any individual restaurant to do it, but a company like this or like Uber that's maintaining the records as well as the ratings. And that's the thing that I got really excited about when I was at Proven, was that if I start out as a dishwasher, having someone retain my work history and the ratings that I get for performing those jobs means that over time, I'm going to get more work and more money as my ratings go up. And we see that with the Uber model. That's why they got into this, is that every time an Uber driver makes a drop off, we get to rate that person across multiple dimensions. And the higher their ratings, the more work they get as an Uber driver. So yeah, there's about a half a dozen or so players that have gotten real money. Shaquille O'Neal put money into another Atlanta-based startup that matches workers with jobs. They don't do it in real time, but they were pushing to go down to that model, much like Proven was trying to do. And then you have a host of other startups that are just dedicated to the restaurant space and to the grocery space that are doing this here in the US as well.
And I think what's really interesting here is the way that, you and I talk a lot about technology empowering and democratizing. And I think here is a really good example of, so say pre-digital revolution, when I was a student maybe and doing sort of restaurant or waitressing jobs, you had to be in it or not in it. And if you worked as a waitress somewhere, you got your shifts for that week, and that was it. And these were long shifts. Whereas somebody who's maybe wanting to dip in and out of that and have a bit more flexibility around a college course or something, they're put back in control of that type of work. And it's easier for them to do because waitressing or dishwashing, these are hard jobs. And obviously, maybe as you say, for the restaurant, it's tricky because they do need people for long shifts. But it's not that everyone is going to want to do that. And maybe splitting that job over 2 or 3 people throughout the shift means that you've got some, people coming in and they're a bit fresher and, they're not tired out by the end of it. So, and people might just want a shorter shift there. And so it opens it all up, and I really like the idea of that.
Yeah. The one question I have that I ponder, if the pandemic has made companies more receptive, and some of my early research suggested that they would be, is white collar jobs. So jobs that you would not suspect that would be open to this sort of shift work, brand management, for example, or legal work or accounting work. Are we at the point where platforms like this will offer up opportunities to individuals that are in specialized work areas to sell their services across multiple employers? And there are strong indications that just might happen. I think legal work we've seen with some of the early upstarts like LegalZoom, that lawyers could be on a platform and offer up support for projects that are put into a queue. But this approach lets them market themselves individually to employers who need whatever their specialized capability is, if it's tax law, corporate, whatever, and not be tied down to an individual employer.
Yeah.
I think that world's coming faster than anticipated because of the pandemic.
I think you're right. The only challenge with that, though, is that the projects tend to be more sort of immersive and kind of meatier in the sense that people need to get to know maybe the background of a project or a brand, or the legal context of something. And this does open up these platforms with the kind of higher value, larger scale job work, contract work, to this sort of disintermediation, this platform leakage, so that the connection is formed on the platform, but then there's not really much incentive for the person to deal necessarily with the platform that often, and might form the connection with the company they're working for on the platform, but then from that point on transact with them off the platform. And then it's tough because the platform obviously isn't generating any revenue from the transaction from that point onwards. Whereas for something like this, there's a huge volume of jobs happening all the time. And I think the model is that with this, it's $100 a month subscription fee for the actual participating businesses on Clockedin. So they've got that revenue constantly, haven't they? Whereas for larger scale jobs, you do wonder if people would want to pay that. I mean, it's certainly an interesting trend to see these white collar jobs. And actually, we've got one we're going to talk about in a minute. We've got a market
travel agents, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's why I think this is coming faster than we can expect, because you do see, particularly like in the tech world with Upwork and other platforms like that, Top Coder, which we've talked to the CEO of Top Coder, Mike Morris, on this podcast. We see white collar work in the tech space being kind of the leading horse in this movement, but it's coming faster than we think. When we see travel agents wanting to be part of platforms like that, you're absolutely right. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah, I think it is really interesting, the specialist gig economy platforms rather than the all types of work. So, but yeah, let's come back to that in a minute.
Yeah. Now, one closing remark on this is that I do think, as this movement continues, the platforms themselves are going to have to agree to be the centralized repository of my work history. And I think that's what will bring the white collar worker back to the platform, is that when I complete an assignment, someone has to be the third party arbiter on what happened, what my rating is, what my qualifications are, so that when the next person wants to hire me, we have an apples to apples comparison of one lawyer versus another. And so these platforms are going to become de facto recruiting, staffing, agencies of sort, because they'll have the transaction history between the parties retained on the platform, and that'll be another revenue stream for them for maintaining that history for their platform users.
Yeah. And it will make them, sticky, as they say. It will stop people transacting off the platform because they get all this added value as well.
Exactly. Well, so guys, this has been another exciting edition of Gigging News, everything in the sharing economy. We want to again thank our co-host, Eleanor Tucker, superstar obsessive over the peer-to-peer platform area, for being on the podcast. And we can't wait to bring you another show in a couple of weeks. Till next time, guys, from Eleanor and I, we say